Welcome back to the porch. You're listening to Red State Horror. Tonight, we're heading deep into the Montana backcountry, a place where the silence is so heavy you can almost hear the mountains breathing. This is the story of Mara Voss, and why she never hikes alone anymore. For 5 days, I was completely alone on the Bitterroot Trail. No cell signal, no other hikers, nothing but pine and silence for 60-some miles of Montana backcountry. On the 5th night, something outside my tent said my name. Not a name close to mine. Not something the wind could have shaped by accident. My full name. First and last. Spoken low and patient, like whoever said it had all the time in the world to wait for me to answer. I didn't answer. I want to tell you I was brave about it. I wasn't. I lay there in the dark for 4 hours, not moving, not breathing louder than I had to, while something walked a slow circle around my tent. And right before sunrise, it said something else. Something that's kept me up almost every night since. It said, "I know which way you're going tomorrow. If you were alone out there, 60 miles from the nearest road, and something outside your tent said your full name, would you answer it?" Tell me honestly in the comments. Now let me tell you what I found at sunrise. My name is Mara Voss. I'm 28, and at the time, I worked claims processing for an insurance company in Missoula. The kind of job that pays the bills and asks nothing else of you, which is exactly why I'd started disappearing into the backcountry every chance I got. Something about the trail made me feel like a person again, instead of a function. 3 days in, and the noise of my regular life would finally go quiet enough for me to hear myself think. That August, I'd planned a 6-day solo trip through the Bitterroot Range, 40-some miles, starting at the Lolo Pass trailhead, ending at a Forest Service road where my sister would pick me up. I'd done solo trips before. I knew the risks, and I respected them. Bear spray clipped to my pack, a satellite messenger for emergencies, even though the canyon walls swallowed the signal half the time. I'd told my sister my route, my checkpoints, and the day I'd come out. What I hadn't planned for was day 5. The first 4 days were exactly what I wanted. Long, hard miles, quiet, so complete it had a texture to it. I saw elk on day 2, a black bear at a respectful distance on day 3, and not another human being since the trailhead. On the evening of day 4, I made camp in a clearing above a creek, the kind of spot you photograph, because it looks too peaceful to be real. I remember feeling, for the first time in longer than I could place, something close to happy. I didn't know yet that I'd stopped being alone out there. The first sign was small. Stupid small. The kind of thing you explain away, because the alternative is too unsettling to sit with. My boots, which I always lined up neatly outside my tent vestibule, weren't where I'd left them the next morning. They were a few feet away, turned to face the tent instead of away from it. I told myself it was wind. I told myself animals investigate things, that a curious marten or a fox could have nosed them around in the night. I packed up and kept hiking. By the afternoon of day 5, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Then, crossing a long scree slope with no tree cover for almost a mile, I felt it. The specific, skin-deep certainty of being watched. Not a guess. Not nerves. The kind of knowing your body has before your mind catches up to explain it. I stopped and turned in a full circle. Nothing. Just rock and wind and distance. But the feeling didn't leave. It walked with me for the rest of that day. A presence just outside what I could actually see, matching my pace like it didn't want to get too close and didn't want to fall too far behind either. That night, I made camp later than I should have, in a stand of lodgepole pine close enough to the trail that I told myself I could hear anyone coming from a good distance off. I was wrong about that. I was almost asleep when I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, the careful kind of slow that comes from someone who doesn't want to be heard but isn't quite skilled enough to manage it. They stopped just outside my tent, and then a voice said my name. Mara Voss. Both names, clear, unhurried. If you're feeling that chill, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and join the Red State family. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss our weekly trips into the dark. I have never been more silent in my entire life. I didn't move. I didn't breathe deep enough to make a sound. I lay in that tent with my hand wrapped around my bear spray, listening to footsteps slowly circle the outside of it, over and over, for what felt like hours. Whoever it was never tried to come in. Never touched the tent. Just walked. Slow circles, patient circles. like they were waiting for me to do something, and they had absolutely no urgency about how long that might take. Around what I guessed was 4 in the morning, the footsteps stopped, and the voice came again, closer to the fabric this time, low enough that I felt it more than heard it. "I know which way you're going tomorrow." Then nothing, no footsteps walking away, no sound at all, just silence so complete it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath along with me. If you're feeling what I felt lying in that tent, go ahead and subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you would have done at 4 in the morning, alone, 60 miles from the nearest road, with something outside that already knew your name and your route. Now let me tell you what I found when the sun finally came up. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay there until first light turned the tent fabric pale gray, and only then did I unzip it, bare spray raised, ready for whatever might be standing there. Nothing was. No footprints in the soft dirt around my tent. None. Not one. Which should have comforted me, and instead made everything so much worse, because it meant whatever had circled me for hours hadn't left a single trace that it had ever been there at all. I broke camp faster than I've ever broken camp in my life. My hands were shaking too badly to fold things properly. I just shoved everything into my pack and started walking, my planned route forgotten, replaced by one single overriding instinct: get off this mountain. I changed direction. Whatever it had meant by knowing which way I was going, I decided it wouldn't get the satisfaction of being right. Instead of following my planned trail down toward the Forest Service road, I cut east, toward a different trailhead I knew was roughly the same distance, just to break whatever pattern it expected. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Just hiking, and the particular silence of a person trying very hard not to look behind them every 30 seconds. Then I came around a bend in the trail and stopped dead. There was a small cairn of stones built in the middle of the path. Deliberate, recent, the kind hikers sometimes build to mark a trail junction or a memorial. Balanced on top of it was a single bootlace. Mine, the one that had gone missing from my pack 2 nights earlier, which I'd assumed I'd simply lost. It had been laid out, carefully, in the shape of an arrow, pointing in the exact direction I had just changed course to walk. I didn't go that way. I sat down right there on the trail, and I made myself think clearly, the way you have to when panic is trying to make all your decisions for you. Whoever or whatever this was, it wasn't trying to catch me by force. It had every opportunity to do that during the 4 hours it circled my tent. It wanted me to go somewhere. It was hurting me, the patient way you'd herd something you didn't want to spook into running the wrong way. So I went the only direction it clearly didn't want me to go. I backtracked, climbed a ridge I hadn't planned to climb, and added 6 brutal extra miles to a route I'd already half finished on no sleep and shaking hands. I didn't stop until I found a stretch of open alpine meadow with sightlines in every direction, nowhere for anything to get close without me seeing it coming. I sat there until I had enough signal bars on my satellite messenger to send an SOS with my coordinates and 3 words: need extraction, unsafe. It took search and rescue 11 hours to reach me. 11 hours of sitting in that meadow, watching every tree line for movement, every shadow for a shape that didn't belong. Nothing came. When the rescue team finally found me, the first thing the lead ranger asked, before anything else, was whether I'd seen any sign of a man matching a description they'd been circulating to backcountry permits that whole season. A man in his 50s, they said, local to the area decades back, officially reported missing 11 years ago, after his cabin burned down with what everyone assumed at the time was his body inside it, except nobody was ever actually confirmed. The fire had burned too hot, too completely, for dental records or anything else to settle the question for certain. The county had simply closed the file because 11 years is a long time to keep searching for someone everyone already believed was dead. 3 hikers in the past 2 years had reported a presence on that exact stretch of trail. A voice in the dark. Footsteps with no prints. One hiker, 2 seasons before me, reported the same thing I had. A circling presence at night and a single clear sentence spoken close to her tent. Her sentence wasn't the same as mine, but it was close enough to make my skin go cold when the ranger read it to me from his report. She'd written, "It said it's been waiting for someone to finally stay." I think about that sentence more than I'd like to admit. I think about a man who burned in a fire that maybe wasn't really his ending, walking those same 60 miles of backcountry for 11 years, circling tents in the dark, saying names out loud just to remember what a human voice sounds like, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally answer instead of running. I haven't been back to the Bitterroot Trail since that August. But 3 weeks ago, my satellite messenger, the same one I used to call for rescue, sitting in a drawer in my apartment, switched off, battery long dead, turned itself on at 2 in the morning. It sent a single test ping to my emergency contact. My sister's. She still has the message. She showed it to me with her hands shaking, because the device log shows the ping originated from coordinates 11 miles into the Bitterroot Backcountry. 60 miles from my apartment. A device that hasn't had a working battery in months. I keep asking myself how something with no power could send a signal at all. I keep wondering if it wasn't a malfunction. I keep wondering if it was an answer to a question I never actually asked out loud, and whether something out there is still waiting for me to finally say yes. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd unzipped the tent, if I'd stepped outside, if I'd answered when it said my name. Would it have stopped circling? Would it have finally gone quiet? Or would I still be out there, walking slow circles around someone else's tent, waiting for them to answer? If something in the dark already knew your name, would you stay and find out why? Or would you run? This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next Thursday.